our community call today is a conversation with the Stewardship Circle. So I want to be able to capture that for folks who aren't able to attend today. And I'm really glad that each of you have decided to pop in and join us for this community call. If you haven't been on a community call in a while, I'm sure you know this, but we range on many different topics. And it's kind of a rolling group. Folks join and then are busy for a few months and then join again. So it's kind of nice to pop in occasionally and see who's around and how you might connect in new ways or different ways. This is a real informal gathering for the most part. But occasionally we have special guest speakers or we do workshops in this space as well. And today's call is something that came out of conversations earlier this summer where folks had curiosity about where is RCC headed and what is our leadership now and what changes are happening that we don't know about. And I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to talk to stewards who have their own experiences with retreat centers that have brought them to where they are now, and to talk amongst each other about what we're seeing as trends or what we would like to see RCC address as trends. And I think the way we've just started with talking about emergency preparedness and retreat centers as resilience centers is a perfect example of those kind of very timely salient topics that we could all really get some steam behind in conversations like this. So I'm really glad that you've chosen to join us. To start with, let's just kind of take a few moments here to get grounded and centered. If you are comfortable already, wonderful. If you're not, make some space for yourself. Feel free to grab a beverage. And let's take a few moments of silence for those who maybe are not able to be on a Zoom call right now, or maybe are in a state of concern over their family or their friends who are in the path of damage. And that goes around the whole continent, as we've already heard from Nova Scotia down to Florida and the other side of the continent as well. So let's just take a few seconds here of silence for that. Thank you. We've got a few ways that we could do this. I was thinking that we could kind of put our stewards in the spotlight and really have them in front of the room, but I prefer on community calls to not do that because I really like this kind of collective conversational way of collaborating. I feel like that keeps us all on the same page a little better. So you may not know who in the room here is part of our stewardship circle, but I can introduce you to some of these folks, and then hopefully we can have a conversation about their stories and their vision for leadership here in this group. And then I would love to, by the end of the conversation, have a Q&A. If there's stuff that you're sitting on that you're curious about RCC or where we've been or what we've learned, would love to hear what those are. If you want to pop those in the chat right away so to get it off your chest or to further the conversation, I welcome that as well. Today with us, we have Michelle Scheit and Oren Slasberg, Michael Schuberg, Nancy Lee, and Yolanda was with us. There she is. Yeah, Yolanda's here too. Yolanda Ramirez, from all across the country here and from Canada. We have two folks from Canada, Michael and Nancy are calling in from Canada. Oren calling in from California. Michelle, you're here in Michigan with me, and so is Yolanda. So we've got some Midwest representation. So you can keep kidding us about the weather, but that's, you're outnumbered. And I was wondering if we could just start with kind of a brief introduction about who each of you are and where you're coming in from, kind of your role in your center. Can we start with you, Michael? Michael, would you like to go first?
Sure, Ben. My pleasure. Well, good afternoon to everyone where I'm coming from, and good morning if it's morning wherever you are. And I'm Michael, and I'm the Executive Director at Five Oaks Center in Paris, Ontario. And I've been connected to Five Oaks for a long time, but as a staff person for the last 5 years. And Five Oaks has traditionally been a United Church of Canada based retreat center. And about 5 years ago, had a transition to really focus on being an interfaith, intercultural retreat space for Muslim, Christian, and Indigenous groups, particularly around, how do we bring those groups together? And we really came back from the edge of 6 years ago to, well, almost closing many times during the pandemic, but here we are, all of us, and looking forward. And so on the retreat center as a steward, the retreat center collaborative as a steward, and have been connected to this work for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. So is that as much, did I set the pace, Ben, correctly for everyone else? Is that what you,
it feels really, yeah, it feels great. Yeah.
Okay.
Just looking next to you on my screen is Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Van. Hi, everyone. Yeah, good. It's a good afternoon for me, and I'm coming in from. I'm in Halifax at the moment, and I work with Tatamagouche Retreat Center up. It's a rural retreat center up in the north. Like Michael, we our origins are United Church, but also like Five Oaks, we have become multi-faith, multi-race, many diverse communities. And similarly, we work on right relation with ourselves, the land, and building kind of trusted circles of belonging. And so I joined I rejoined the Retreat Center Collaborative, what was it, 3 years ago? I joined actually Tatamagouche Center 3 years ago, just as the pandemic hit. So yeah, navigating that like all of you. And I think I really joined the Stewardship Circle when I was invited, because I felt like it was such a resource for me personally in my role, but also the center and the learning. For us, collective care is a really big part of what we do. And I really felt that being in this community. So yeah, really grateful to be here. And I've really enjoyed working with the team so far.
Thank you, Nancy. Oren, would you like to give us a little intro?
Sure. I'm Oren Slosberg. I'm in Bolinas, California, which is Coast Miwok land, about an hour north of San Francisco in Marin County. We're in a national park, so the president is my landlord. Which, by the way, if you could choose a different landlord, I'd highly recommend it. And Commonweal has been around for about 50 years. Our work started working in retreats with people with cancer, and we still do about 10 of them a year, as well as other retreats. Commonweal is a larger organization. Our retreat center is about 5% of our work. And I've been involved with retreat center collaborations since the very beginning. And it has been quite eye-opening to see where the sector was 4 years ago and where it is now, and seeing the changes. And I think RCC has been very much at the forefront of seeing this community come together and start asking deep questions about what is our calling, what do we need to do, what is it that we can do together, what are the pressing questions, like questions of equity, questions of land legacy. So it's been exciting being part of this community.
Can I pass it to Yolanda?
Yes, Ben. Hi, everyone. My name is Yolanda Ramirez Salto, working for the Dominican Center Marywood at Aquinas College here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I want to ask that you please bear with me. I am connected with a different device than I normally am, and unfortunately, I cannot see all of you on screen at the same time. So if there's any questions or anything, just give me a little patience here as I work through those out. A little bit about me. I have been doing retreat work and working at a retreat center for 7 years, going on 8, I believe. And My role is one of a program specialist. So a little bit of organizing, doing programs, offering retreats, and just really catering to the needs of the community. I have been doing this work, like I said, for quite some time, and I am very passionate about the transformation and of people in spirituality centers or just retreat world. And I know how important it is to have spaces where people can go and enjoy and reconnect. So I was very grateful and very appreciative for Ben's invitation to continue the work and see how we can all kind of come together collectively and continue to work here through the RCC for the betterment of all of our spaces and the people that we serve. So thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Yolanda. Michelle, can I ask you to give us a little intro? I'd love to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Michelle Scheit. I'm with the Fetzer Institute in Kalamazoo, Michigan, on the ancestral homelands of the Potawatomi people. I'm delighted to be here. I'm part of the Stewardship Circle and was among the original founders of RCC. The Fetzer Institute is one of the funders of RCC. And it's been a pleasure for me to be engaged in this work over these past years. I'm had the chance to meet some of you, and I'm grateful to have a chance for some conversation today.
Great. I was thinking of some different ways that we could frame the conversation going forward. And for me, my curiosity kind of lended towards story, hearing kind of the story that you would tell of RCC, or the story that you find yourself to be a part of that brings you into this work. I feel like that would help all of us connect with why this group, of stewards is in leadership at RCC. But I think that might end up bringing us to some other bigger questions that all of us on the call here might be holding about our own centers or about the future of our centers. So if it ends up kind of getting a little big, I think that's okay. Or if it ends up switching to a different topic, I think that's okay too. And we can see if there are some themes between the stories of folks on this group. But I'm wondering if we can kind of go through the same flow of Michael, Nancy, Oren, Yolanda, Michelle, and just see if you could share a story about either progress or change that's happening in your center, or that you're experiencing personally, or the story that you're seeing happen in RCC that you feel like is part of your story. So I'll leave it open, but if you could give us a story that would share a little more of your approach, I'd love to hear that. Michael, do you have something that you're sitting on? Hate to put you on the spot.
I don't know. I drew the short straw of going first here somehow. I was not, maybe it's because I was last to arrive. Anyways, I'll learn from my late tardiness. I first will say, and I think many of you have had this experience, but being a part of the RCC has obviously widened my scope of connectedness within retreat centers. And I just feel like the gifts of this connection are very strong, and it's exciting to see what other retreat centers are doing and to see what pieces of that we can apply in our own setting, to have a group of folks that are doing the same work, which this work is kind of odd. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but the work that we do is odd, and it's nice to be around other odd people that also do this work. And so thank you to the circle. It's a delight to be around you. And maybe some of you heard me talk about this before, and it's a bit of a broken record, but in February 2020, I was at an RCC event at Commonweal in California, and this thing called the pandemic was starting, and Oren specifically was like, wow, we all got to really start getting ready for this. Like, this seems like a pretty big deal. And I kind of had my head in the sand like an ostrich, thinking, oh, it's not going to be a big deal. Anyways, it really spurred me to start thinking about what could our retreat center offer should there be something like a worldwide pandemic. And I know as I entered in, I heard people talking about housing firefighters during, or housing emergency workers in context. And Five Oaks became a isolation center for migrant workers. Basically, we're still doing that work, through the pandemic, and it's really shaped a different way of thinking about retreat. It's really shaped a different way of what does it mean to welcome people? What does it mean to create space to come as they are? It really forced us, after hosting 600 people in isolation care over the last 2 years, what does this space mean to our community? And it really encouraged us to think, who else could oddly benefit from this space rather than our regular guests? And I really do think that has breathed new life. I think, one of the really amazing pieces coming out of the RHI work, the Racial Healing Initiative work, is this awareness that many of our beloved retreat centers have really been places for settler folk to gather and to do the work. And how do we ensure that these spaces actually are spaces that are, accessible to all people? And so it's really forced us to really think, and having migrant workers here has really forced us to think about how does this space welcome beyond our regular guests. I just think the world needs retreat centers more than they've ever needed them. And Five Oaks has been around, next year's our 70th year. And I think the people that dreamt up Five Oaks in 1953 would never have imagined 2023 and what the world need would be. And I described the work of retreat centers, and this really comes back to RCC, and the inspiration of RCC in my life and my work has been, people really need this IV of hope in their arms. They need an IV of rest and renewal after this tumultuous and traumatic last 3 years. And there's no better place to do that than the places that we work. There's no better place to welcome people to be restored. And it's helping our communities understand and rediscover the place and space that we offer. So yeah, I'm really interested in collaborative conversations that help us to really reach out to the people that really need these spaces, whether it's trauma from the pandemic, trauma from being racialized, trauma from colonization, or whatever it is that has been caused this trauma, and that we can become these centers of IV bags in the arm. So that's the image that comes to me. And I do think RCC is really helping to advance that conversation, in particular amongst a group of retreat centers that find themselves to be progressive, really caring for the earth, really caring for community. So that's me on the spot with the short end of the straw. And now I think I pass it over to Nancy, who's got the next shortest straw. And I don't know why the Canadians got to go first.
Canadians, yes. Yeah, I think I'll kind of pick up some threads from Michael and tell you a story. Some of you know this story, but we had a bit of a crunchy situation at Tatamagouche Center around a 10-foot cross in our what formerly was a chapel space, and it's become a sanctuary space. It's a beautiful 18-foot space that we've renovated as part of our green retrofit. Now, we've long had a partnership with Indigenous communities and a peace and friendship work. We're in fact in a long process toward land back. And so one of the things that came up from elders was that because we were founded in the 50s and we have cinder block, the large cross really reminded some people of residential schools. It was very harmful. And so we had discussions about, it really, again, crunchy, but deep and real discussions about what is equity. It's not enough to say we're inclusive and we're welcoming to everyone, when in ways our food or our symbols actually aren't widely welcoming. And so we had a lot of discussion around, could the cross come down? Could that space be open to different symbols? And it was hard because there's a lot happening now around, especially with the murder of George Floyd and The real, we also provided some space to migrant workers, not as much as Five Oaks, not nearly on the scale of Five Oaks, but as well as an invitation to rest for BIPOC frontline workers. But what we've been finding at the center is a real need for affinities. People are saying, we want to gather in our affinity groups. So we've always had BIPOC gatherings, but Black community saying we also want a Black community gathering, and queer and trans folks doing the same. And so we really feel that it's as important, that people are bumping into people outside of their affinity groups. So that building bridges as we find these places for rest and renewal has been really key. And also holding these crunchy conversations about how we build the bridges and find our affinities, and decolonize in a way that that everyone feels like they really do belong. So yeah, I think that story best embodies what we've been going through, which is a lot of beautiful and sometimes, yeah, difficult conversations. But I think it's the time we're in and how we hold that in community and find, the work in ourselves to again be in our trusted circles and broader. It's the unique work of retreat. Thank you.
And thank you for passing it to me, Nancy.
Sorry, passing the
and I could deeply echo both what Michael and Nancy has said. And I think the reflections on who comes to Commonweal, who holds the programs at Commonweal through the and lens in terms of access, in terms of class, in terms of race, those have been probably the most paramount issues that have come out of the affiliation with RCC, which both Nancy and Michael talked about. And maybe just to add to that another dimension, I think it's a lot about relationships and partnerships, because there was something about the United States and Canada being the archipelago of retreat centers, and they're all on little islands scattered all over the place. And according to Retreat Finder, there's 2,500 of us. So I kind of doubt there's that many, but there are hundreds, and they're all kind of on little islands all over the country. And when we started to get to know each other, there was not only a sense of belonging and community, but there was a network, and we were having conversations of that range from questions of equity and land legacy and our role in terms of being resilient centers, to what are your alcohol and drug policies, and how do you deal when someone does not cover their expenses, or you need a fast turnaround in 3 hours from one retreat to another. So that sense of belonging has been profound, and out of it grew relationships, right? So I feel like now I could travel across the country and have many different homes out of the Retreat Center Collaborative. And there's a sense of community that has been very helpful. So those are the kind of questions that have been really important for me at Commonweal. It's like, if I do have a question, a challenge, there are people, many of them on this call, that I could just pick up the phone and have someone to talk to about it, which did not exist before we were part of the Retreat Center Collaborative. And, could be an easy question, like, how do you deal with a board member, to, how do we really create a cultural easement on the land for the local indigenous community. So it's very much been about relationships and conversations. And I will pass it to Yolanda.
Oh, thank you. I think
Yolanda, are you
that
there?
we're doing. Can you hear me okay, Ben?
No, you froze for a minute, but you're back now, so that's good.
Okay. All right. So no, I was just saying that that there might be some similarities or a thread that you see among us here at the part of the stewardship circle. And I think it's because there's this genuine desire to want to do the work that uplifts each and every one of our centers. And I think part of that is, as Oren just said, it's about relationship. And it's also important to know a little bit of who we are and what we do. And, you know, and I think for me, I think what's important, or what's been important to the work that I do, is I was brought up Catholic, Catholic, and Credo Catholic, I should say. And I always knew God and I knew it existed, but it was almost like he was in this pedestal that I couldn't always reach out to. It seemed so distant. But I think what was important to me is to take a step back. And when I came in, I came even much more energized and involved in doing things with the church, which actually led me to the retreat center. And now I'm here with the RCC. The reason I share that is because I think retreat centers are key in forming someone's spirituality and building community and just being a place where people feel safe to be genuinely who they are, where we meet them where they are, and find a way to provide those needs or fill those voids or just create the space to allow people to process. And I think for me, the retreat center did that. It gave me more of an experience of building my relationship and spirituality, more so than the religious aspect that I always saw connected to. And I share all of that because I think, as Oren said, retreat centers were all little islands, and to be able to be part of the RCC and be able to have a community that you go to about different issues, whatever those might be, it's really important, not just to us as individuals, but to the community that we serve. And I always think of it, I always this like ripple effect of how my life was transformed and how I can transform possibly or have an impact in the life of others. And I think those who run retreat centers, as Michael said, we do unusual work, but work that is good and work that deserves a space and to be uplifted. So just to be able to be a part of something like this where we can provide that and have this group of people that want to work and do that type of work because we understand the importance of it. And if I see my center succeed, then I want the other center that's right there next to me or at a distance for me to be able to succeed, because it's really about the community and the people that we're serving. We always say, we always think of being a place where we're a center and we do more of the transformation of the heart, so that people can live authentically the lives that God asked of them to live. So I'm just really happy to be able to be here and to be a resource to you all. Michelle?
Thank you. I think I would just echo everything that's been said so far, and it's been such a joy to be able to watch that unfold over the past 4 years. I'd like to share a photo with you. I'm just going to share my screen here, and some of you will recognize this beautiful place. I'll just give you a moment to take it in. This is at Commonweal. when Ben was inviting us to share a story, what came to my mind immediately was this place. Many of you have been to this place and know the beauty and power of this land that Oren has told us is within a national park. And like many of our centers that are so close to the earth and help people reconnect with nature, there's a quality of this land that allows for the unfolding of many beautiful things. And the reason why I wanted to share that is because that is connected to the birth of the RCC, and that the idea for starting to bring this work together in 2018 came in a conversation along that bluff. And I have since come to respect the beauty and power of that land very much, as we've seen so much important and really powerful work unfold through gatherings and conversations that happen there. And I know Oren often goes on walking meetings along that bluff we just saw. And as in the case of the development of RCC, a lot of beautiful things are seeded there. And I know that connects for so many of us because we've had similar experiences in our own lands and our own places, where with intentionality, we open up space for deeper conversations, deeper connections. And we don't always know where it's going. But I've just found if we can be open to what is to emerge, some beautiful things can happen as they have in this group. And I just feel so privileged to be a part of it. So thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. We have about 23 minutes here. I was like a half hour. No, it's 2:07. We have about 23 minutes. I would love to hear one more round from the Stewardship Circle about your vision for the future. It's something small, even a phrase, just something that your vision for the future of RCC, for the future of this community. What are you holding that's kind of motivating you that you can see ahead for us? This can be popcorn style. We don't have to have short straws, Michael. I'm sorry. I can maybe start by saying, for me, the conversations that we were having last summer around land and legacy and stewardship, I started to see how that was connected to healing for all different kinds of people, including myself. My own healing needed to have a connection to land. And then in our conversations with the Racial Healing Initiative, finding that healing for people who have suffered racialized trauma and harm is connected to land. Like your personal body's connection to land is a part of your healing journey in multiple situations. And so that those two conversations were headed somewhere, and that was also a place where retreat centers are. I thought I have a vision because of that. There's something that I'm going to there that I'm very motivated by. That the healing of people is something that can happen at retreat centers if we can be in right relationship with ourselves and with the land.
Absolutely, Ben. I also get this image of all of us kind of in our respective spaces, almost kind of like holding this candle. And then when coming together, that candle, that flame, that it's more of an intensity, and it is brighter because of us coming together. And I get that vision because I think that we're the ones to lead by example. Building relationship and building community here can really have an impact in the way that we build community with those in our neighborhoods or in our cities. And I think part of that is being able to create that space, that sacred space
and we'll hear that the word sacred space is not, I don't think, unusual or for us to mention or to talk about. And in creating that sacred space, that can bring about all that healing that Ben just mentioned. So that's a little bit, it aligns right along with what I had envisioned, Ben. And the road or the way to get there might look a little bit different for us, depending on where we are. But this collectiveness of having each other to lean on is just something that's really, really dear to my heart.
Something that's really standing out for me, and I was with a group on retreat 2 weekends ago here at Five Oaks, and there was someone someone from the Christian Mennonite background, and just the way she was speaking, it really made me think of our green paper, the RCC green paper. So I actually took the green paper and I gave it to her, and I said, "Yeah, I think you should read this." And she came back, and her and I had an amazing conversation about the concept of universal flourishing. And I just think it's a profound idea. It's countercultural, to everything we've been trained to be and do, yet it is actually at the root of us. And anything that our spaces can do to help people understand how we can flourish together universally is such hard and good work. And it's slow work. It's work that's not just going to happen tomorrow. It's like everyday work. It's a long time. And, on our property here, there are oak trees that are older than Canada, older than the formation of Canada. And as I pass by them, when I walk this place, I put my hand on them and think, like, you remember a time when humans actually worked at flourishing together, and there will be a time to come. And so that's long past me, but I do believe that our centers work towards this goal, this vision. So I'll just offer that into the space. The oak trees remember and know it will come again.
To build on Michael, it's always hard talking following a preacher. The image of the oak trees is very real. To me, part of the vision is actually kind of like the room of requirement in the Harry Potter books, if you know those. But like, what to do the kind of work that Yolanda and Michael were talking about is like, there are ways that I can imagine RCC helping facilitate that. So like an amazing program that's happening in one retreat center can then be shared with another retreat center. See our work come together. How do we support together? How do we come together to find shared funding like we did with the Racial Healing Initiative, right? That was a big grant that came to RCC. And because of that, there are, I don't know how many retreats going on across the country of retreat centers during racial healing retreats. So those kind of, that's some of the, I'm not sure what the right word is, pragmatic aspects, or as the abbot of the San Francisco Zen Center Green Gulch Retreat Center at a conference talked about, that our work is pragmagic. So we have the magic aspect of it, and we have the pragmatics of it. And I think RCC can help with both of those. And the pragmatic side is it's critical to make the magic. So, there's conversations about, let's learn how to do retreat for nurses, because right now our nurses communities are completely burnt out and they don't want to do the work of healing that they've been doing. So, we're going to throw one here, and if it goes well, why don't we share one with other retreat centers? And I can see RCC being the home of that, of kind of helping these new channels of programming, not having to invent the wheel, doing it together, coming together and finding support, so the community can have a pragmatic aspect to it. The Whidbey Institute has a summer camp called Power of Hope. It's a model that they've exported. Well, why don't they export it to more retreat centers? So, having maybe some aspect of building community around shared programming, shared funding, shared vision, holding our core values that are articulated in in the green paper. I think that's a lot of the vision for me. And also having that place, like I'm having an issue, I'm the executive director. There's no one at my organization I can talk to because they either work for me or they supervise me. If you work in one of those models, there's someone to call. I mean, just that on its own, I just had to throw that one in.
So I'm going to build on the universal flourishing, the magic, and say, yes, the abundance and even the, not just the what, like our sharing of what we're doing and some of these exciting, inspiring programs, but the how. So something we're exploring at Tatamagouche Center is, you know, in the decolonizing is a shared leadership model. And we talked in RCC about, you know, really being conscious of cultivating kind of self-organizing groups. I think I mentioned before a kind of a swarm of starlings or a murmuration of starlings where, you know, energy is coming from different places. And like Oren said, you know, something exciting is happening here. How do we make sure that spreads? I'm really excited about us thinking about different ways of doing things, frankly, because something that we're really questioning some of the things around our governance and our norms, our structures. And I think, like others have said, we're looking at more rest, more healing, more body, more outside, less content, more gathering. I feel like there's kind of natural things happening around leaning into what is yummy and nourishing, literally, you know. Yeah, so that's what I would add.
Michelle, are you there? You're on mute. Can't hear. There we go.
Okay, sorry, everyone. I'm struggling with my connection here, but I'm back on my phone now. One thing that this is sparking for me as I reflect on what has been shared and the racial healing work is in terms of universal flourishing. I just think about the healing of the whole, and one of Commonweal's, I don't think they call it a mission, but it's sort of a tagline, is about healing people and healing the planet. And pair that with universal flourishing. Fetzer's mission is helping build the spiritual foundation of a loving world. We're all engaged around this shared theme and these core values that speak to us. And I really think it's about the larger healing that we collectively are called to at this time. We know there are so many struggles and the meta crisis at hand. And there are resources that we have that we can draw on and that we can foster together. And I've just been really inspired in RCC to see these things happening in so many different places and so many different ways from all of our different traditions in all of our different geographies, that we're part of this larger healing work that is so needed in our society right now. And it's just stepping back and hearing it. It's inspiring, and it gives me hope for us collectively, because we're doing a piece of this larger healing work that is so needed.
Thank you, Michelle. Should we open it up to some questions? Do folks have something they'd like to share with the group? Yeah, Margaret.
I'm grateful to be on the call. I'm grateful to hear from the Stewardship Circle. And I want to say one of the comforting thoughts during the last 2 or 3 years has been knowing that there was a retreat center collaborative. I think it was Oren spoke to the islands, the little islands of retreat centers, and it's pretty easy to be totally absorbed in one's day-to-day functioning to make everything happen and lose track that there's a bigger world, a supportive world. So that's been a comfort. Long in the past, way when I first started my work here, which was over 10 years ago, Retreats Center International had just, in a sense, collapsed, and that support for directors was really such a key thing, and we kept our small group in our region going for a while, but no longer was there support for that and a kind of energy for it. So to see this larger whole spring up is really helpful. I have to say, it's daunting to first have worked our way through successfully the time of shutdown, and some of you have managed to open much earlier than we did in California. California really was, I think, success in many places, successful in trying to keep the controls on the pandemic locally, and fortunately in Marin County we were very tight and helpful to the people. But we still have people hesitant and not showing up or canceling because they're concerned about the next wave of COVID, the next wave of flu. And so we're left with gigantic holes in our programming, and it's life-threatening for us as a center. And that's our ongoing concern. I think that Stewardship Circle suggested to me something around the questions of sustainability. And when one has a mission-driven focus, as we do here, to support we're not a center we are a very consolidated center. Everything happens in one core building. So our focus is the contemplative and cultivating the silence, and it's very healing for all who come. That being said, we can't, I don't know always how to respond to all the various opportunities that you have described with different programming. So I think it could be a failure of imagination on my part, but by the same token, we're down to the nub of a staff trying to keep alive to provide what we can. And so you're all a lifeline this morning. And Ben's email of yesterday about a project that's going on related to sustainability has really come at a God-given moment for us. So I'm grateful. And I hear such hope among you all when I'm facing what Michelle referred to as the kind of the large-scale cataclysmic events that are happening in our world that have people staying home. Quite frankly, they don't even, and they're tired of Zoom. So, those are things that I see happening, reasons for being grateful that there are all of you out there thinking good thoughts about being creative. So thank you for the call. Thank you for the comments, and I'll keep listening.
Thank you, Margaret, for sharing so close to home there. It's a tender share. Yeah. Other folks want to chime in?
I'll jump in. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, everyone.
there are some familiar faces to me here from HCN Network. My name is Ling Lo. I know some of you through Holistic Centers Network. I was formerly the program director at Hollyhock for a number of years. And my family and I, my family being my partner and myself and my dog, just road trip down from Vancouver to Big Bear, California, which is where I am right now. Just taking on a contract to support the retreat center here on some organizational strategy and program strategy. And so I just wanted to chime in on a few things. It was, I haven't joined many of the RCC community calls. There's a lot of crossover between what is discussed here and at HCN. So I'm really glad to be invited here and to join in on this community. One thing, Oren, I was really interested in is the idea of shared programming. And I know we don't have much time left, but I just wanted to drop into the space that when I was at Hollyhock, we did do a program partnership with Kripalu, an online series, which worked really well. And we had a lot of learnings from that. And I'm super interested now landing in a new center to explore where there might be synergies and ways to collaborate. Because we're sort of building a program, not from scratch. It's a meditation center primarily here, but interested in doing a lot more work with BIPOC folks and trainings and leadership. So that's my work here. And I'm literally day one joining this group. So I just wanted to put my hand up and introduce myself and say I'd love to collaborate with anyone here on programming ideas or yeah, just to share best practices and get to know each other. So thanks for welcoming me into this space. Over to you, Aaron.
Thanks. Yeah, Ling, I'd love to talk. I'm with the Wild Seed Society, and we are doing many things. One of the things that we are doing is looking for retreat centers who want to partner with BIPOC movement leaders to talk about joint programming. Specifically, there is a really big need for what we call peer respite and also sabbaticals. So folks that are going through rather intense crises that generally come from the end of the Trump years and just right-wing attacks, and people haven't had space to decompress and heal, and having a space where they can sort of stay for 5 days with 2 people to like just help them work through what happened, and then hopefully be part of a program that would eventually allow them to be on sabbatical and be supported by a support team. And we're really lucky that we think we found some folks who might help us with the support team aspect of it. And we do some of that work. That's kind of our main work. And we are really looking to see like what the potential is to partner with retreat centers, either on hosting the like 5-day retreats or hosting longer sabbaticals, or doing some sort of like, if there people can communicate that when they have open rooms, and we do like a virtual program, but people can be in a physical space. A lot of our activists just need to leave. It's not that Zoom doesn't work for them. It's that their physical location doesn't work for them. And maybe, we couldn't, because of COVID, it might not work to have 100 people at a retreat, but 50 people spread out through 10 different retreats on Zoom for some of it, and then being able to walk the grounds and get food might be a way that we have shared programming. And yeah, I have a lot of other ideas about it, and we're talking with funders. And I think if we could have some partners, it would be a much more attractive offering to some funders. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, let people know that we're thinking about it, and see if folks had thoughts or things that sparked or know of things that have been tried like that in the past. But thank you for what everybody shared.
Any specific geographic area, Aaron, that you're looking at? Or not really? Pretty broad.
Yeah, this is pretty national, and we have folks in Canada too. So
okay, sweet. Aaron, if you could put a contact information in the chat. Ling, do you have contact for folks that you'd like to chat with? If there's something you'd like to share too, so that people can get back in touch with you.
Yeah, I'll drop my email in the chat. I'm just advising with this group now, so it's my personal email, which some folks will have, but I'm going to just drop it in here. Thanks for those who have DM'd. I am so thrilled to see that there's energy around this, and what perfect timing to have this call this morning.
Nice. We're here at the end of our time. No, we're not. No, we're not. We have more time. Wow. Okay. Wow. I'm losing it. Sorry. We are not at the end of our time. This can continue. Wow. Are there threads here that we want to pick up to run with a little bit further? Brian, you got something you're sitting with?
I was really intrigued with the comments with regard to kind of shifting the focus of programming that maybe we've all been somewhat used to, with more attention to simply gathering, being present, outside, outdoors, et cetera, et cetera. And so I would just say that I'd love to see in the future, so that's not off the cuff, some opportunities to continue to kind of look at that concept, because I'm finding that that is the case. People who come for a set program, we often can't begin because they are so engaged in just celebrating being in each other's presence, being in a quiet space, being in a place that's kind of refreshing and whatnot. And I don't want to keep pushing just the programming like we have always done it, quote unquote, but to consider what kinds of changes in how we are in this space, rather than so much what we do in this space. So I think it was Nancy, and I'm sorry, I came on a little bit late, but I want to say that was the most intriguing thing, that we just need to maybe consider that and maybe put it on the table for a conversation, moving into the future when we have other RCC calls. I think that reminded me that I have to think differently, not only about how to get people back or how to redo programs that we used to do one way or another or hybrid them, but how we need to reconsider the structure of them completely. That was it.
That's great. It's great to catch those threads that overlap. I wouldn't have expected you to say, I'm seeing that in my participants. So it's really helpful for me to say, oh, okay, here are these two locations that are seeing the same patterns. Nancy.
Actually, we were just having a conversation about this in the Fetzer community this morning, about holding space for the being as well as the doing, and how we achieve that balance. And I think, our whole culture is tilted toward the doing, and our job in this particular orientation we have is to help create the space for the being. And it's very countercultural. And I find a lot of times when I'm working on agendas for retreats with my groups, everyone's wanting to cram in one more session and one more session. And why do we have to have a 2-hour break there? We could do one more session. And it's an important reminder what you're raising about our job to hold that and to push on that, because we know that's what we all really need. The being and the inner work and the space. Aaron talked about it too, that it's as much, I would say it's like more happens during the lunch break than happens in the session. So let's have more lunch break and less session.
Can I respond to that? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, so first of all, thank you guys for inviting me back into the space. It's been a while since I've been here. I think I was at that conference in 2018 2019, 18, when you guys were just starting to develop this, and I've been back a couple of times, and it's just been really rich. And what stood out to me about that 2018 conference was how much space there was for a contemplative path within a conference. I left that place and I went to a different conference like the next day, and it was just one thing right after another, and it was a stark contrast, and that really made an impression on me. Also, the map that you guys have with the circle and the kind of 7 overlapping foci, just passing that on to folks in my neighborhood as a different way to map the ways that we interact, instead of placing the people or groups and who's closer to the center, but actually just kind of putting them outside on the ring and seeing what we're actually doing. So yeah, I've been able to pass on some good stuff. I'm interested in the land, the relationships with the land. That was the main thing that I heard you guys kind of discussing the last time I was here, and I still hear you guys talking about that, and it's rich, and I feel like it's a deep direction. And Ben, when you talked about the healing, how healing is based on our relationship to the land and the earth that we are on, that just struck deeply, and it made me say, oh, that's why they're continuing to think and talk about this. And so just a little bit about myself. My name is Billy. We have a 4-unit space that is a residency / retreat center in the middle of Detroit for folks to kind of work through spiritual art practices. And we have a good relationship with a Lutheran monastery 40 minutes away. And so Aaron, yeah, I'd love to talk more about kind of what you're up to, because that's what we're doing. We just get a bunch of people who are in the city kind of grinding and take them out there. I would just love to hear more about, at some point, just about the relationships with place and land, because it's one thing to go out into this, this beautiful area out there, but we're trying to bring and kind of heal the relationship to people who live in our neighborhood. So what does it mean to be centered here and to be a part of a centering community here? So yeah, I'll reach out to some folks. But yeah, again, thanks Ben for bringing that up.
Yeah, Eris.
Hi, everyone. So nice to be here. I'm joining for the second time, so I'm relatively new to the RCC community. And also coming from the for-profit retreats and workshops, I strongly resonate with the tension between the programming versus being and spaces. Like, we are expected extra to fill everything to the brim to create a return on investment, quote unquote, which to me is like analogous to people going to the gym and trying to park as close to the gym building in order to go inside and just get on the treadmill and run there. So it's good to be amongst people who have like-minded, like-hearted approaches to land and gathering and bringing people together, because we clearly do need it. And as a community, as a society, what we don't have is a clear way of how to reel back of what has been gone out of proportion for over a century now, like of just more and more and more and more. And it came to a head with the COVID, but the thinking system is not going anywhere unless there is a burnout, a breakdown, etc. And we have been seeing the examples of it on the highest end. So that is what the collective conversation brought up for me. On the pragmatics level, I love that, Oren. My curiosity is about twofold, like fact finding about the RCC collective. Is there a yearly or biannual survey about the members, and like what would you like to focus your next year's efforts collectively on? And simultaneously, what is on the target audiences level? Like, are people aware of retreat centers? Have they been to one? What are the considerations that holding them back? Of course, there is the territory and there's the map. And creating a survey just to confirm what we're able to collectively report back here might not be the best use of time or resource. Yet simultaneously, if there is an insight to be gained by collecting our resources to ask to the larger audiences, to people, but are they aware? Where are they looking at? How would they be interested in carving time to go visit a retreat center? I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that approach. Thank you.
We certainly do a community survey annually. I think there could be, as we continue to grow, there's so much room for us to empower ourselves as a community through that kind of data gathering. And we have not done a participant-facing survey. It would be really interesting for us to design that collectively and put it out through our own individual audiences. I'd be curious what we might learn about retreat participants as a whole by kind of mobilizing this community that way. I love the way your brain is going. It also feeds right into our next community call, which is simple marketing strategies, where we're going to talk about some of that. How do you go deeper with your current audience, and how do you identify the audiences that would love to be with you, but you haven't communicated to them what you offer? So we'll be talking about some of that at our next call, which I think could yield some of those kinds of questions that we could then use to formulate our next community survey. The last one we did was in April, and I do have results available for everyone to see. There's a slide deck of the results that I can share. But if other folks want to pipe in on some of the questions you're asking there, I'd love to hear what others think.
I've been loving hearing the ways to collaborate that people are talking about. It's something that I only came on, I think, in 2019 when I came back to the center doing programs. But I think the group that created the community of communities is an example of that. And as much as I had hoped we could be a part of that, right now, financial considerations, but we tried a new approach. We tried to see if people would come to Diane Nelson's program ahead of time, so we knew if we had enough to cover the fee. It didn't work out that we did, but I think a number of people still came on because they opened it up to anyone who wanted to sign up. But I hope there'll be more of that, ways that we can maybe do programming to, I guess program has always been my middle name, but I think now programs with the whole contemplative way of being at some of those can make a difference too. We just had our 50th celebration 2 years late, but it was an amazing gathering of people, including, because it was blessing of the animals, we had 5 friars going around blessing the Tampa police horses and dogs. So it created a wonderful community sense. And so the more we do that with the beautiful property of our 8.5 acres, I think will be wonderful. but still knowing that we've, especially as a octogenarian, I know we brought people to the center through Zoom that couldn't come anymore. So it's kind of that hybrid idea that as much as people get tired of it, I find if you offer the great program, like I did one on death, don't wait till the last minute, and I get surprisingly got wonderful participation in that, and an amazing book on how to do good goodbyes, which are not morbid at all, but about living fully. So anyway, programming and sharing program, I think, could be exciting.
Well, I'd love to share that what a lot of people have shared this morning on the call already really, really does resonate with me over here in Wisconsin, where our center is on land that is currently stewarded by Racine Dominican Sisters, a community of Catholic sisters. And I guess what I want to share is that it seems like the pandemic and everything that has gone on during these years, which is certainly not only the pandemic, it is the murder of George Floyd, it is the financial, it's the Great Resignation, it's the financial ramifications of the last few years, it's natural disasters, and it's the pandemic. And it seems like that cluster of occurrences, horrors, situations has put so much into a spotlight. Does it seem to you like decisions have always been important for us? It seems like there is a before time and an after time, and we are so in a new time, and the decisions that we make are now and future decisions. It just seems like the enormity of the decisions that we make are almost exacerbated, or almost like grander, larger than decisions used to be. Decisions used to be, okay, you make a decision and you hope it's the right one. Now it's like, oh, this is a decision that could have consequences for the next 2 years. Maybe we're going to be open in the next 2 years, maybe we're not. And if we're not open in the next 2 years, what ramifications does that have for the broader community and the several thousands of people that we serve every year? Like, it never seemed to be quite so, almost like, you know, how you can get a magnifying glass and magnify the sun. You know, it seems like our decisions are like magnified. And that's kind of how I'm feeling lately. You know, just in some of the hiring processes, decisions at the board level, decisions about who owns the organization and the entity, and what do you have to put in place in order to be in financially sustainable and thriving and independent, and all of those considerations. And being able to turn to the Fetzer Retreat Center collaboration has really been a lifeline for me. Even if I haven't been on the calls, when I can, I go onto the bank of YouTube videos. Those days that I really need an inspiration, quick, let me find a video where I can connect with some other folks and find a topic that resonates with me. So I just want to say thanks, and I'm not sure where all those thoughts are going, but I just put them out there. Thank you.
Claire, if I could just ease your mind here for a little bit. Please know that things really they've changed significantly from what we were used to, but as a whole, they really haven't. Because if you really think about it, really what matters is the perspective you give things. You know, we had this false idea that we were in control of the things that we did with our life because we wanted to control them. And COVID came and everybody said, I can't do this. I can no longer do that. We never really had full control over it. We just had the false illusion that we did. And I sometimes feel like when you're saying we have to make these decisions that are going to have bigger implications into the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, those decisions were always the same. It's just we're looking at them in a different way. And I actually think that it's a beautiful thing, you know, rather than looking at it like this is, oh my gosh, what do I do? This is going to be huge. What's going to happen down the... Those are just decisions, and that's the approach we should take with every decision we make. The only difference is, in my point of view, is that now we're looking at it as it's life or death. Every decision should be thought about in that way, because when we don't think about things in that way, it leads to not looking at the bigger picture and the implications that such decisions will have. And that goes from everything from regulations to policy making to just about every aspect. It's small and at a retreat center, you think about it, but that's the exact same implications on the whole piece with land and what we do with it and where it is and how it got there. It's because those were decisions that were made years ago that did not have that thorough big image, and now we're living in it. So in a sense, I think it's good that we have this awareness of what that really means. It's not always a negative, Claire. Go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry. I snuck in there and threw you off a little.
Nope, you're good. Any other questions for our stewardship circle folks while they're here? Questions around RCC as an organization or around programming that RCC is doing? Or I'm just curious if there are other questions sitting there that we haven't gotten time for. Maybe not. It's okay too. Maureen, yeah.
I'm embarrassed. I didn't know about the green paper people are holding up in their hands.
I'll have to mail you one.
Okay, thank you. I've
Yes,
read, but I don't know I guess what was the physical green paper.
we were able to print some. We don't have many. I think we could print more, but we're actually working on an addendum to the green paper. So the green paper we call the green paper because it's constantly in progress. We're learning and then growing and learning and writing down kind of where we are now. So the green paper that's on the website is not the latest. There's one more that's coming that's almost ready. And the one we have printed is not quite the latest either, but it is what's on the website. It's the same thing. It's just paper version, Reimagining Retreat. And it kind of captures where we started, the journey we've been on, what we've been learning from each other along the way. And it has our theory of change kind of graphically illustrated in there. So if you've read all that, then you're up to date, you've got it. But there's an addendum that we can share that has some updated thinking on the theory of change, actually with some great input from the new stewards and from the listening circle that we gathered this summer. And also has just some updates on the programming. The size of our community has grown again, so some of that is included.
Hi, so I'm Pam, and I'm new to this group, and I have a question in terms of, I think the green paper is fabulous. It's very inspiring, and it's a great direction to go in. I'm new in this area and looking to establish a retreat center and currently doing some consulting work with different retreat centers. And so I'm really just in a learning space right now. And my question is, what does the stewardship team need from its members? What projects might you have brewing that you need some people power to get behind and make happen? How can we be of service?
Thanks for that question, Pam. I'd like to speak to that a little bit, perhaps in a more general sense, that for the past 4 years, as RCC has evolved, it really has been just completely emergent in nature based on the needs and the energy of the people who are participating. And so we think new things develop when people come in and want to develop a new thing. And so we're just really eager to create spaces for collaboration. And if you have something you're interested in or exploring, or something you're interested in collaborating with others, maybe there are 1 or 2 other people in RCC who want to do that too. And we want to just foster those connections and create space for that to happen. Because your space and your work and your needs better than anyone. And we're just hoping to make the connections and spaces available for that type of collaboration to happen.
So in a concrete way, we're talking about creating hubs. So if someone was, let's take Erin's idea. If that was to become a focal point, we can create a hub that has retreat centers that are interested in that, and they can become a working group on that. Or another hub that I hope would evolve soon is around kind of the retreat for nurses. So if there were other retreat centers that were interested, when Ben puts out the word, or if one of you puts out the word, it could come through RCC, and I think RCC might be able to provide some support to those hubs, but kind of create working groups. And you kind of like, what does it mean to pilot sabbatical places for BIPOC leaders? What does it look like? Create a hub that works in that, and then share the learnings from that hub. So kind of answering Pam's question is like, as ideas come, join in, share it. There's so many different ways. I mean, I know some of the organizations here, and there's a lot of ways that we can create these hub of activities as it comes up, and it both helps the community, but also will help, will help your own retreat center. So it's about engagement, finding, ideas for community calls, like what are the subjects that are on your mind? Sometimes, like I remember when we had a community call about substance use and alcohol, it was an amazing call that was enlightening to so many people. Like, really, you're allowed to do that? So those ideas, those questions, that kind of input automatically gets translated into a hub, into a community call, into a newsletter, or even matching you up with someone, right? There could also be that thing that I know Ben does sometimes, like, oh, you're thinking about doing a retreat for people with cancer, so talk to Oren at Commonweal, because they've been doing it for the long time.
Yeah. Thank you.
I know we just have a couple of minutes left, but on the idea of a hub and just something that I'm hearing across a number of interests, and maybe it's because it aligns with something that we're interested in. But the idea that Erin raised about sabbaticals aligns with our interest in residencies. And I heard Linglo too. And like, I'm just wondering if there's something more general around broader, longer retreats or residencies, which might be sabbaticals, might be BIPOC. But if there's enough interest, because it's come up again and again, and I think there may be different ways in across the different retreat centers, but there might be something general enough that is a hub around longer retreats or residencies. I'll just offer that, and whether it's formal or informal, would like to be a part of it.
I may be speaking out of turn. Brian, you can cut me off if it's necessary, but the program we've had for over 12 years for first responders, a retreat for 4 days, might be something that could be shared. Our mayor, who was also the former police chief, spoke at the 50th anniversary she actually became teary-eyed when she talked about what it meant to her as the police chief, and people coming to her at first saying, do I have to go to that? And then saying, when is that next retreat? So it's been happening every 2 months at the retreat center for 12 years, right, Brian? I couldn't help but remember that I wanted to talk.
Yes, we have over 400 who have participated in that, and it's been very well studied by the local University of South Florida. I also added in the chat, we have a connection to Baycare hospitals in the Tampa Bay area, and they have a whole vice president level of people who work on mission. And they frequently do, including one day later this week, days to work with community-based nurses and nurses who face a great deal of challenge. And so if there is some interest in putting something together, I would be able to connect you with folks that might make something occur, probably via Zoom for those not nearby, but we do a lot of room and Zoom. So if there's interest in that, I could put my email in there as well.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks to the folks who have stuck through for the full hour and a half. I tried to get us off the call at a half hour early. My apologies. Glad we had this conversation. Really looking forward to the threads that I'm hearing, many of them. I'm not even able to catch them all in the chat. So thank you for everyone who's been sharing in the chat. And I look forward to our next community call on October 25th. We'll be talking about marketing, which also picks up on several of the threads that were present here today. Thank you, Brian, for the email. Yes. Although I don't see, I don't know if that's an email. Thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Not sure why it's not working. I'll fix it.
Okay. Thank you to the Stewardship Circle members for being here. Look forward to connecting with you all again soon.
Great to meet you all. Thank you.